I've never really said this to her before, but I just said, if you want to do some writing, I can like teach you some things about basics of writing a story and stuff. And she just said to me, I'm sorry, mommy, but I don't think I'm going to write books when I grow up. I want to be a dancer. She's really into dancing. It was so cute and so sincere. And I'm just like, that's okay. I have no expectation of you writing books when you grow up.
Hey guys, it's Kai here. Before we dive into this next awesome interview, I just wanted to say a quick sorry. I know that I haven't posted an interview in about a month. Life has been a little bit crazy with traveling and book signings and events. It's all fantastic. But I am sorry that I've dropped the ball a little bit this month, but I have been listening. I'm so grateful that you guys have been commenting as to who you want to see on this channel. And I have some really exciting interviews coming up. So make sure, please do keep commenting, keep sharing, keep liking, please subscribe. I am building this channel. I do this on my own, so I'm so grateful for your support. And most importantly, I want to know who you want to hear from on here. So if you do have a particular author that you want to discover about their journey or listen to what resources they might have, definitely let me know in the comments below. So for now, let's dive into this epic interview. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Kai Carrington-Russell, an Amazon Top 25 best-selling author known for writing kick-butt heroines and delicious men in dark romantic worlds. And I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking to an Amazon Top 50 best-selling author known for writing badass, swoon-worthy heroes and strong heroines with explosive chemistry. We are talking to the one and only Jaine Diamond. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on because not only did we just have a new release, which we are going to delve into soon, but you have been smashing some author goals. So thank you for coming on. And I would love to actually go back to the beginning. Why did you start writing and how did you find publishing for the first time?
Well, to put a very long story short, basically I got the acting bug, when I was 10 years old. So it goes way, way, way back. I was given an assignment from my teacher at school to go write a poem. I get like the whole class was given this assignment. And so I think that was the first time for me. Like I just remember having a very clear like light bulb moment of like, oh, this is something I can do. It's not just something in books. And so that just lit a spark in me. And then I spent my whole teenage years just like writing, feverishly writing, books I never finished and just writing and writing and writing. And really, it was a passion. It was just like a passion that came to life in me, almost like I unearthed it and it was just there and meant to be. So it's always been a passion for me. And I just got really serious about it as the years went on. And I did other careers and I realized that this is the one thing that I really want to do that just never goes away, that I really need to do. And I'm just going to keep doing it, even if I never make a penny or anything. And so I had this, of course, vague dream of being a published author. I didn't know how to make that happen. I think my one biggest barrier was just lack of confidence, just not knowing what I was doing or feeling like I didn't know what I was doing. So then how I came to publishing was I finally decided I'm going to actually like commit and finish writing a book and then I'm going to get it published. And I just made this like decision in my head. And at that same time, that was about 9 years ago. So at that time when I shared that, decision with my partner, he's just very awesome and supportive. So he had said, have you thought about like, what about self-publishing it? And I actually said to him, like, oh, that's not a thing. Like, I just thought self-publishing was, vanity publishing. I didn't know what it was. I didn't have a Kindle yet. I hadn't kind of discovered all of that. That was probably a little more than 9 years ago, but before I actually published. Um, and then I just went down a rabbit hole of like finding out everything I could about how to get published. And of course, on the internet at that time, then I stumbled upon people talking about indie publishing and Amazon. So, I mean, it's a big, long story, but the gist is, I kind of discovered that that was a thing and decided, well, I think that's for me because my book that I had written was a very unique mix of genres. It was a erotic sci-fi with BDSM set in space in the future and with a military body. So it was like men in uniform. And so it sort of was this cross, blend of genres and very unique. And I thought every agent that I query this to is gonna reject it. Like I don't know, I didn't feel like this is going to be something that people are going to say no to, but I really feel like I have something here and I think the book's good. So then I figured out how to publish it myself and the rest is history.
And what year was that you published?
Yeah, so I actually published that one in 20 December of 2015. So that was my first, about 9.5 years ago that I actually published the first one.
It was your story is very similar to mine, to be honest.
Oh, cool.
Knowing like at a very young age, oh, this is kind of my thing, trying different things and going, no, this is for me. It was a very different time in 2015. I remember personally, I published initially in 2014, and there was so much naivety to it. And also, there was not resources like there is now. And you kind of really had to figure it out as you went. There was still a lot of stigmatization around if you're an indie published author, your work was not professional or it was not a polished product because you weren't traditionally published. There was a lot of that comparison and just trying to figure out market in general. I feel like a lot of us didn't really necessarily understand it because we didn't have all this experience that publishing houses do. And then you come to now and you think, how do I know all of this stuff? Like you've accumulated it over the years. I am curious as to when you noticed the snowball effect in your career. When was that moment that you thought, shit, I'm a real author? Like, or I'm making money from this now. Like, this is turning into a real thing. I'm starting to live my dream.
It happened pretty early for me once I published because there were several factors. One was that hard decision that, like, I'm going to publish this book, but then I also made another decision, which was the year that I actually finished editing that book and published it, 2015. I also had my baby girl. I was pregnant, and so that allowed me to take a little break from working at my day job. And so while I was at home with my baby that first year, I finished the book and published it. And I made the decision I made there was I just want to prove that I can do this by making just enough money that I can justify not going back to work to another job so I can continue to invest in this path. And obviously, my partner was still working, but not like a super high paying job or anything. So we needed the income from my writing if I could make any. So that decision was like, I'm committed to this. I need to at least make a little something to contribute and have it be enough. And so we were able to do that a little bit at first. That first book didn't sell like crazy or anything. I had no idea how to market it, but it got some, I sent it out to reviewers and like to bloggers at the time. And some of them, total strangers, were super nice and said, yeah, I'll read your book. And they read it and they reviewed it and it got some great reviews. That kind of gave me that little bit of confidence that, like, okay, there's something here. And so the snowball effect was right at that time, after I published the first book, I started writing my second book, but I decided to switch genres and I switched to contemporary romance. Not from any great, insight of like, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to be a better sell or it's going to be good to market. I didn't know that much. I just had a burning idea for another book I wanted to write. And even though the first book, that sci-fi book, had been a total cliffhanger with a couple that I was intending to finish as a duet, like a second book, I still let it hang and switch to this contemporary romance, which was Dirty Like Me. It's the first book in my whole big contemporary romance world that has now a whole bunch of interconnected books. But this was book one. I had this burning idea for it. It's rock star romance, which I didn't even know that was a genre. Like I was so green. But I just wrote this book. I was like, I want to write this book. So I wrote it. And within just 1 year so the first book, it's called Deep, came out, that sci-fi, December of 2015. And then November of 2016, so almost a year later, I put out the first rockstar romance book, which was Dirty Like Me. And by the time I did that, because my partner, he worked in like marketing and whatnot, he could see that there was something here and that I was really following through, like writing the books and it was getting some reviews. So he sort of jumped on board. And that was a huge thing for me for my snowball effect that I had that support. So he actually took what he knew about marketing in general and started to learn about the book world at the same time I was and kind of put together a bit of a marketing plan and like helped me a little bit. And he started, once we put out Dirty Like Me, a few months, I think a couple months after it came out, he started to run like Facebook ads and stuff. So we were so green and just like tiptoeing along. But that was a big part of the snowball effect for me, I think, was putting out a book in a genre, not that rockstar romance is like a super selly genre. It's still a bit more of a niche, but it is contemporary romance. And I had that support of my partner. He started running Facebook ads. And so I think it was a like timing and just a lot of things coming together and us working together on it. And also having that conviction that like I'm going to make this work so that I don't have to go back to another job. And we managed to make that happen. And it was pretty, like I said, pretty early for me in my career.
And I imagine there were many like hurdles, obstacles, challenges in between because to maintain a career this long in this industry, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing, we've seen so many amazing authors drop out of the game because of burnout or personal reasons, or perhaps, they're just not able to hit where it needs to hit at the time and they can't persevere, which is completely understandable because the long game in this is it's intense. What they say. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. I am curious then as to coming into now with your new release. I imagine your writing process has changed a lot over the years. Is that correct? Like plotting, pantsing, the times that you write around. Do you have more of a I will write between 9 and 5 now? What does your writing process look like?
It's definitely different than before I was publishing. I'm way more disciplined now with my work time. But I also like I have a daughter, as I mentioned. So she's 10 years old now, but she's in school during the day. So that's mommy's work time, and daddy. So we work during the day on our business and me writing. I say business because, the writing is part of the business for me, a huge part of it. So yeah, so I work Monday to Friday while my daughter is in school. That's my main thing. I try not to let it bleed over into my evenings and weekends because that's family time and that's mom time. So, yeah, I'm way more structured with it that way. I also do a combination of pantsing and plotting, as people call it. So I do some plotting and outlining, but then I also have a lot that comes to life organically as I write, and I need to leave room for that. I can't if I over plot and over plan and over outline, it becomes too much for me and it kind of kills the muse. So I have over time figured out that balance. And I also find that every single book is different for me. So some need a lot more pre-planning and outlining, and others need a lot more room to just breathe on the page. So I've learned that. I've learned that every book is a new challenge and is a whole new thing. But I'd say one of the biggest things I've learned is just not to write myself into a corner. I think in the first few books, I wrote a lot of like whole chapters and scenes that would get cut because they went nowhere or they didn't go in the right direction or whatever. And now I rarely, rarely have that kind of thing happen because I have more of a sense of knowing where it needs to go,
Yeah.
whether I've outlined it or not.
100%. And I think you start trusting your writing a little bit more intuitively as well. You kind of know if something feels off or if it's right. You understand, I guess, your creative flow. I am curious then if you had any different challenges writing Darling Obsession, the one that just came out on May 30th. Was there anything unique that came up for that book while you were writing it?
Yeah, big time. Burnout. Burnout. I started to experience some burnout as an author for the first time about 6 books ago. And it was during a time when I was moving in my like moving houses, and there was a lot going on there. And it was in the middle of the pandemic. So there was just a lot of stuff going on. My daughter was home more than she had been, from school and stuff like that. So there were all kinds of reasons. And so that was my first sort of taste of burnout. And then I thought I like fixed it and dealt with it and it was all good. And then it crept up on me again with the last 2 books. And so then I had to go back to, okay, I need to learn more about burnout. Why is this happening? And which I did. But it took me a while to address it. And this book, unfortunately, it took me a long time. It took me a year. And a lot of that year was not writing. It was dealing with the burnout and figuring out how I could get back to writing, not just to squeeze out this book, but to like enjoy writing this book and make sure that when I finished writing the book, I would go on to wanting to write the next book, which is where I am now. And I'm happily writing and I feel much better. So, but I'd say that would be the biggest challenge that I had with this one. It wasn't the writing itself, it was the burnout. So, yeah.
I love your honesty in that because I actually love talking about burnout on this channel because it is something we need to discuss more because it is a very living thing. And as you said, it is not one of those things that you're like, oh, okay, I'll just have 2 cheeky weeks off and I'll be fine. It can, as you said, it can last a whole year sometimes. And then it can be debilitating in itself because it knocks confidence. You get frustrated with yourself. You're like, why can't I just do what I've always done? I am curious as to what some of the conversations you had with yourself to say that it's actually okay. I do need to prioritize myself in this situation. And some of the things that you've implemented to hope that you don't do it again, you don't get to that place again.
I really had to recognize that as much as I thought I had addressed the issues, I hadn't fully. And so I hadn't fully like filled up my gas tank, as it were. I was really running on empty a lot. So, and when I say that, I mean mostly like creatively, like my creative gas tank, I was sort of just outputting, writing, and not really like filling it up and not balancing self-care and other things in my life so that when I sat down to write, I was full and ready to go. And it was weird for me the way it crept up this time because I went to write this book and I just had nothing. But I thought I was ready. I outlined it in detail. Thought I knew what I was doing and I thought I was ready. And I just sat down to write it and it was just like nothing, not one word. I couldn't. So I would go back and I'd play with the outline, work on the outline. I could outline it. I had ideas. It wasn't that I didn't have ideas. It's just that I was so creatively burnt out. I just couldn't write the words. So it was a unique experience for me. I'd never quite experienced that before. And at first, I didn't even know what was happening. I'm like, what is happening? What is wrong? And then I realized when I sort of went back and looked at burnout, I was like, I think I'm burnt out. That burnout can come in different forms. And I think what I had specifically going on was creative burnout. I wasn't burnt out in general in life. You know, sometimes when you think of burnout, you think of somebody just like barely can get out of bed, exhausted, depleted, all of that. I wasn't like that at all. Yeah, I was just ready to go and then nothing. I just couldn't go. You know, you're in the car, you're ready to go, and then you can't go anywhere. So it was very frustrating, but as soon as I realized that was what was happening, then I could start to address it. And so I had to, those conversations with myself were just like, well, I have to deal with this
Yeah.
because I keep trying and nothing's happening. So I need to address like what's going on. And it's going to take some time. And that's not what you want to tell yourself. But you don't want that reality of like, well, if you don't do this work, guess what? You might be sitting here in a month and still not writing a word.
Yeah.
And so I had to really address it. Yeah.
And that's definitely the terrifying thought of it as well, is that what if I still can't write in a month? What was some of the you were saying that you were looking into burnout so you could figure out specifically what it was that was impacting you? Were there particular books or podcasts or groups that you were getting resources from that actually helped you identify that you would recommend to viewers?
I mean, for me, I think the biggest resource is Becca Syme. She talks a lot about burnout, and the first time that I realized I was having burnout a few years ago, like a little bit of a lesser burnout, that was when I had first, I think, discovered or heard of Becca Simon, started to listen to her, and through there kind of connected when she was talking about burnout. I was like, oh, that's this thing that I'm dealing with. So she was really helpful. You know, just listening to her podcasts, and she has a book on burnout and several related topics. So I think she's a great resource for anyone if they haven't, you know, listened to her, or they haven't listened to her lately or read her books lately to go back maybe. And then just in general, input in general, like allowing myself some space to read other things and to take time off and not always be pushing to try to squeeze out words. Yeah, so it was sort of
I
a
I hear you.
yeah.
The relevance is wild. And for those, Becca Syme is actually somebody who I really do encourage viewers to watch or read as well. She's got so many resources. She has a fantastic The Gallup Strengths as well, which I highly recommend. She has a Patreon as well, which I would recommend checking out too, because there's some really great resources on there. So thank you for recommending her as well, because I do really love her stuff. I
Yeah.
am curious as to what advice you have for authors who are wanting to delve into writing compelling billionaire romance themselves. What are some of the, I guess, tips you have for writing that genre?
Well, I mean, I love a vulnerable hero. So the guys that I write, the heroes, they tend to be like edgy, like bad boys, So I have my billionaires, I have rock stars, bodyguards, bikers. They always are like wealthy and powerful and of course hot. But despite all their power, external power, they always have like some kind of vulnerability, which I love getting to. And so when you're so mega wealthy, like a billionaire, I mean, we all know why that's attractive and why it's a hugely popular genre. But I think it's so important to like dive under the layers of who this person really is and get down to their vulnerability and have them be vulnerable because they have so much power that for them to be brought down by like one person, that one woman that they love, that's the moment when he just like, would be willing to like give it all up for her or like, totally risk everything for her. That is the ultimate thing, right? Because the temptation of having all that power and actually being vulnerable to somebody else or willing to give that up. I think that's like the moment. It's not just about like that he can buy her a fancy diamond and all that, because that's all nice, but that's part of the fantasy, right? But I think it's the vulnerability of the person underneath, like getting to that and allowing him to be vulnerable.
Is there any particular way that you delve into that vulnerability or into their wounds or into the depths of well, I guess your female characters as well, but do you create like a bit of a character profile, or is it as you're writing, you're getting a finer tune as to who, what, when, how, why impacted them, and this is how they are, and this is why they balance each other as a couple. Do you already know that before you go into the book, or is it different for each book?
It's different for each book, but in general, I know who they are and what their background is and kind of what their wounds are, where they came from. But I don't always want to go into like super detail of how that affects them because I want some of that to come out in the scenes when they're like in the room with their the heroine, or even with their best friend or their sibling or somebody else that they're opening up with or whatever. I want some of that to come out as a reaction in those scenes and like for me to almost have the excitement of figuring out who they are a little bit, but or exactly how that wound or whatever is from their past is going to play out or in that scene. Like I sometimes I want to discover it a little bit as I'm going, and he'll say something or do something almost that's a little unexpected for me because he's just coming alive in my head. I love doing that with my characters for everything. So yeah, but I always know like I know who they are and what's wounded them and stuff beforehand for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And I imagine too, because a lot of them are interconnected, you may have already mentioned them at some point as well in previous books too. I love that. If you could now talk to baby author Jane, what would be three pieces of advice you would have given yourself at the start of your career that you know now?
Ooh, I mean, confidence is the big thing because I mentioned that earlier. I think that was the one biggest thing that was missing for me. And I mean, rightly so. You don't necessarily have the confidence in the thing if you haven't proven to yourself that you can do it. But maybe like to not be so afraid and so hesitant and so self-doubting beforehand, in the early days. So I might have taken some chances a little bit earlier, but maybe I wasn't ready yet either. But I think that would be a big one is like believe in yourself, right? Because I did eventually get there because as an indie author, you have to believe in yourself because you're the only one. Like you don't have a publisher or anybody necessarily, or in some cases, a partner, an editor, other people to help guide you or bolster you up or whatever. So you really need that. And I would say, baby Jane, I would tell her um, just to trust her instincts. I think I was pretty good with that right on at the beginning with knowing what I wanted to write and writing from my gut. But weirdly enough, along the way, maybe not so weird, but along the way, I lost some of that sometimes. Like I find it's harder now because there's the voices of like all the readers in my head and expectations that I think are there, maybe whether they are or not, that sometimes get in the way. So that's become problematic at times. And I think it's also contributed to some of my burnout creatively. So believing in myself and ask for help sooner. I think I don't know if you've experienced this, but one of the toughest part of growth for me has been, as any business grows, you hopefully, if you're successful enough, you hit a point or many points where you can't do it all and you need help. And I put off asking for that help, like even just getting a PA and like that kind of thing for so long because I just didn't know really how to do it. I didn't know how to find the right person, or I second guessed, do I need to do this? And I hemmed and hawed and just like dragged my feet for so long with some of those decisions. And then as soon as I did them, I was like, why didn't I do this a year ago? So I definitely dragged some of those out way longer than I needed to. And I've definitely heard other authors say similar things like I should have sooner asked for help or gotten an assistant or whatever.
Yeah. All those three bits that you told yourself are very similar things that resonate with baby Kyle. I love the baby Kyle, but all of those things resonate as well. And so I would highly recommend for those who are listening to try and take that on as quickly in their career as they can, because it is very good advice and it will very much change, I guess, your outlook on a lot of things as well. But you're correct in the sense that we have to back ourselves up, because at the end of the day, we're the one at the desk writing. We're the ones that have to believe in what we're publishing, and it is okay to ask for help too. I love that advice, so thank you. Let's talk about the tricky monster of social media. So
Sure.
social media is so different now to what it was in 2015. And, we had bloggers and we had street parties and we had all these like more, I want to say, organically reached types of readerships and groups. Now there's so many different platforms, there's so many different options, and whether you do paid or whether you don't, or if you're not paying, you're paying with your time. So I'm curious as to what you focus on in social media and whether you delegate any of that as well.
For me, it's really changed over time for sure. Um, and I don't even know exactly when it was, but over the last year and a half, maybe, I really pulled back from social media personally because, well, several reasons. I wasn't enjoying being on it anymore. It was a big distraction and sometimes a mental drain. And it's just not a place I wanted to be in terms of I'm very sensitive. And my creative brain is very much like a sponge. I'm always soaking up things and emotions. And I've on talking about the strengths with Becca Simon, the strengths. I'm high in empathy. So I'm like a number two empathy. Yeah. So I think that, and I'm high in input. So I find that I just take on so much. And I talked about that idea of like having the reader's voices in my head and expectations, whether that's 100% accurate or just what I feel. I take a lot of that on. And I found that over time, I was taking that on so much that it was paralyzing me when I would go to write. Um, and that was entirely something I created myself in my brain, and it just wasn't really healthy for me. And there was nothing negative happening. Like I wasn't having problems on social media or any negativity coming at me. It was just that it was all those voices. It was just too much input and too much to take on. So hard to explain, but for me, I just found that, I think I just need to be not there. Like it's just not good for me. And I'm needing to write more and focus on writing and taking care of myself as a writer. And so that was the decision I made. I thought maybe I just need to be on here less. So I would be on there less. And I did have some people start to do things for me on there. So I didn't have to be, so that it could continue to go without me. Um, because it was one of those things in the business where it's like I can't do all the things and continue to write books. And so I actually hit a point where I was doing all administrative stuff and social media and whatever, and literally could like never write because I was letting it take over. And then I was, really struggling with like, well, when am I ever going to write a book? So it was really bad. It was like completely out of balance the wrong way. And so I had to really have a reality check of like, okay, I need to let go of some things because I'm also a personality that feels like I need to do all the things all the time, 100%. So that meant like a maximizer and all that too. So all that is to say that I eventually, over time, I was like, I just need to be off here like more and more. And once I was off of it, I'm like, I don't miss it. There's no problem. I just need to be off. So, I'm just pretty much not on there anymore and I'm fine with it.
So good.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people do have to come to this conclusion, because I think, or not it doesn't have to be the same conclusion, but whether it fuels you or whether it drains you. And I see too often authors are like, oh, but I need to be on the TikTok, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. And they may spend hours doing that. And that's okay if you're seeing a result and if you're enjoying the process as well, and you still have time to focus on the writing itself. But there are so many authors that I see are just so exhausted from being on there constantly and focusing on that. Whereas now I think they're then at the point where they're not actually being productive. And so I think there needs to be a fine line, and it's good to do a regular health check, even every quarter. Like, can my time be invested elsewhere? Even if it costs me to pay somebody a couple of hours a week or whatever it may be to do posts or whatever it may be. Those are always options. So just make sure you're doing regular health checks with that. And I came to a very similar conclusion to you. And I'm still quite heavy on social media, but not as much as I used to. And I found it helped my mental capacity so much more because, as you said, I didn't feel like there was just so much coming in all the time. So definitely separate yourself from it if you need to. I am
Mhm.
kind of curious as to what your greatest challenge has been and your greatest accomplishment in your career so far.
Well, the greatest accomplishment would probably just be that being able to make writing, being an author, my full-time thing. That was the goal I set out of the gate, and I managed to achieve it pretty quickly. And then the next goal right after that one was to have my husband be able to leave his day job to work on our business full time because he's my partner in my publishing business. He still runs the Facebook ads and Amazon ads, and he sort of handles like all the finances and dealing with the accountants and just a lot of the business things that I am not great at, he does. So we're a great match that way, and a great team. So anyway, we were able to have him leave his job a year earlier than we even had set as our goal. So that happened very quickly too, early on in the first few years. So being able to just support our family of three with my books and live my dream every day, that is the biggest accomplishment still, and I think always will be.
Yeah.
Um, Greatest challenge has been as the business grows and my platform grows, just learning how to manage that and not have myself get lost in it. And so going back to what we were just talking about, and even the social media, like you were saying, some people, authors should be on social media. Personally, I think I shouldn't just because of who I am. So it's really like knowing yourself and what makes you tick and what you need, and what's important to you, et cetera, et cetera. So learning those things over time as I grew into being, an author running my own business, which I didn't have a playbook for. I didn't go to university for, I had to figure it out as I went. So that has been a big learning experience and the biggest challenge, just balancing that and being true to myself. Because when I do things that aren't in line with like who I am, like say if I tried to be on social media all day long and all that, that's when I'm kind of miserable and I don't have any juice left to write, which is the most important thing to me. So, and to my whole author platform ultimately. So that has been a big challenge. And I find like I'm still learning things about myself as a writer every day. And I love that.
10-year-old you must be so proud of where you are right now. And I imagine it's very rewarding to now also have a 10-year-old daughter yourself and knowing that you can really show her that whatever she wants to do or whatever she wants to become, she can do that. Like that's really inspiring and beautiful in itself, like very full circle, I feel.
I mean, I hope so. We talk about that all the time. Me and my husband were like, we hope that she can see with our life that we've set up the way we want it to be, where we both work from home and have our own thing. And this is what we wanted. This is our dream life. And we hope that she sees the benefits of that and that she also can have, gain some courage to do what she wants with her life. But I mean, she's only 10. So for her, it's like all she's ever known. So I don't think she thinks it's that big of a deal or that cool. But I think she's starting to sometimes see it with like little things. But I'm sure one day when she's like an adult, she'll realize it's kind of cool. But she actually told me last night at dinner, um, she had written a little story or a part of a story that at school and she read it to us. And then I said, and I've never really said this to her before, but I just said, if you want to do some writing, I can like teach you some things about basics of writing a story and stuff. And she just said to me, I'm sorry, mommy, but I don't think I'm going to write books when I grow up. I want to be a dancer. She's really into dancing. It was so cute and so sincere. And I'm just like, that's okay. I have no expectation of you writing books when you grow up. So it was just really cute.
I love her honesty though. Like I love it's like
She's just like,
be
sorry,
that hard,
mom.
but it'll be this form of art. And you're like,
Yeah.
that's cool, let's do it.
Yeah.
What is the big goal? What is the dream that you were chasing for your author career? The bigger the better.
For me, it's really more of the same, but just bigger. Like, I want to have a career that lasts. I want to be one of those old writers that's written a gajillion books and is still writing until their brain just doesn't work anymore. Like, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing, and I don't see any reason why I won't be able to. So my big dream is just to do that and be able to like me and my husband and my daughter to be able to do fun things with it, like travel and meet cool people and continue doing what we're doing, just at a larger scale, I guess, over time.
I absolutely
So
love. I mean,
not
it's
that exciting. Just
no,
I'm happy with it.
but it is. It absolutely is. Like again, I go back to 10-year-old version of yourself that's just like, who would have thunk? Who would have known? But I guess also being 10, you probably were starry-eyed and was like, of course it's gonna happen. And then it's when you get older that you start thinking, oh, I don't know, maybe. But I am curious what you have found the most surprising thing in this industry has been something that really you not necessarily shocked by, but you're like, oh, I didn't realize that that was going to be a challenge or that was even going to be a thing in this industry, but it took you off guard.
I don't know if I have an answer for that one. Like nothing comes to mind. Like, how do people usually answer that question? I'm so curious what somebody else, like what anybody would say to that question. Like, what would be surprising? Like, what,
I
what, what for you was like that?
So, oh, I like that.
I'm
Switchy.
just curious.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of things like sometimes people have obstacles that they overcame, which can often be very inspiring. But also some might say the social aspect of it as well, like not realizing that there would be such a community, like with writers and creating friends and things like that. So it is quite unique for everyone. I think very much for me. It would be that community, I guess, as well. Like I've definitely created such an incredible tribe of fellow authors who are very much near and dear to me now. But also, I think what caught me most off guard was that this has really built me into the woman that I am today. And I think there was also a point in my career, though, where I also had to separate my identity from being only an author. I think that's what, because for the longest time I was being a workaholic. So separating, and I'm still working on it now, is that I'm not just Kai the author, I'm Kai who also enjoys these different things. And so finding that type of balance so it can be unique to everyone as well.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I mean, for me, I think my biggest surprise, like, I don't know if it's not really so much about the industry, but just maybe just like how successful I've been. Like I don't know that like 10-year-old me would have foreseen that and this life. Like I don't think that I knew that I could do it until I did it. So for me, that was probably like I still sometimes it's like pinch me. Like it's a little like surreal almost, even though it's my everyday life. So that's kind of a good thing, I guess. A good surprise.
What's an encouraging piece of advice or end note you would want to offer viewers who are watching this now, who are just starting their writing journey or they're wanting to level up in the next stage of their writing career?
I think the first and foremost thing is knowing your goals because I mean, everybody's goals are so different, right? Like if you don't know what your goal is, you can't go after it, first of all. So, and that's something that I think I take for granted that I do all the time, but not everybody is I think that used to like setting a goal and going, I'm going to achieve this thing and like going after it. So you have to know what your target is to hit it. And so some people have to, I think, do that work of like defining it for themselves. Like is my goal to be like a full-time author making enough money to support myself? Is my goal to be on the New York Times bestseller list and win awards or whatever? Like, or is my goal just to like finish my first book or write a great series that people are buying and like work from there? Like, so sort of setting those milestone goals for yourself and going after them and then really figuring out like spending that time to figure out who you are as an author and like how do you achieve those goals? And are they actually going to fill you up? Are they the right goals for you? And like, are they attainable? And like, how do you go about doing that without having to spend your day doing things you don't want to do? Like, if you are in this to write books you love, then that's totally different than like I'm in this to make X amount of dollars or or do you want both of those things? And if so, how are you gonna make that happen? Like, I don't know. I just feel like you have to spend that time to like figure out exactly what you want and how you're gonna get there. And if there's things missing for you, which there usually are, because when you're an author who's writing books and you're also trying to like run a business as an indie author, so you need all these business skills and marketing and there are those rare, amazing authors that do all of it and they're amazing at all of it, but most people don't have all those skills in one person. So identifying the pieces that are missing for you and being able to like seek those out and figure out how you're going to get them. Are you going to have to pay someone? Can you afford to pay someone? Are there things you can trade or get for free? Or like, how can you get help? To fill in those missing pieces and not underestimate how much you're going to need to run, an author business at whatever size. That was like a huge long-winded answer with like a whole bunch of things, but but I think it just comes back to that, like knowing who you are and what you need, and then how are you going to fill those? And the sooner you can figure that out and know what you're going to need, so you can start to build that, I think you'll be ahead of the game because a lot of people they put all this effort into writing that first book and don't realize that like that's such a tiny piece of it, because when you're climbing that mountain of trying to finish that first book, it feels so huge. But then that's just a small piece, writing that book. If you want to also be a successful like indie author publisher, there's so much more to it.
100%. And that is good. Honestly, it's really good advice because I think it leaves out a lot of confusion once you do know what your goal is and where you're going to, and then you can just count back your steps as to how you're going to manage it. I actually think it greatly helps. So it is really good advice. Thank you. I have had so much fun having you on today. Let us know what we need to be on the lookout for, and most importantly, where do we find you?
Okay, well, I have a readers group called Jaine Diamonds VIPs on Facebook for readers that like to like connect with other readers, and I have a wonderful like PA. I call her my queen of fandom, Alyssa. She knows everything about my books, so if I'm not there to answer questions, like she knows all the things. So she keeps that running for me. So that's a great place to like hang out. And then if you want to know like be the first to know, when I have a new release or have news or giveaways or behind the scenes stuff, my newsletter is the best because that I do the newsletter myself. I'm not like personally on social media usually at all anymore, as I mentioned, but I do my newsletter myself and I write little letters to the readers, and I like put all my news in there first. So that's a great way to stay in touch. And when I have a new release coming, that'll be the first place that gets announced. I don't have any right now. Usually I have like a pre-order up when I put out a book, like the one that just came out a few days ago, but I don't this time because I've given myself a little breathing room to like play and work on my next few things and decide what's coming out next. So yeah, it'll be coming soon.
I love that. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. And who knows, watch your space. Maybe in a couple of years, we'll get you back on and see where you're at.
That would be amazing.
I
I
love
would love it.
it. Until next episode, guys. Bye.